Hi, and welcome to the Christian Indie Writers Podcast, where we inform, encourage, and support Christian indie writers on their journey to publication. I'm Jamie Hirschberger. I write short fiction under the pen name J.R. Nichols.
I'm Jennifer Carl Tong, and I write historical Christian romance.
I'm Christina Catena, and I write Christian fantasy.
I'm Rhonda Hagerman, and I write fiction and nonfiction under the pen name Dee Dee Bowman.
Welcome, everyone, to the podcast. We would like to thank you all for watching us. We love our live chatters who watch us every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern on YouTube. There's a very active chat over there. So if you're free on Friday and you've never checked us out live, you ought to mosey over to our YouTube channel and get to know our wonderful live chatters. Also, we appreciate everybody listening to us on iTunes or Spotify or anywhere else that you can access your favorite podcasts. Please spread the word about the Christian Indie Writers Podcast by liking and subscribing to us. We'd really appreciate it. And we know that there are other writers out there who could use a healthy dose of information, encouragement, and support. So help us spread the word by liking and subscribing. And we're going to move on to our What's Up segment, where we go around the virtual table and ask each of our hosts, what's up? What's up with you today, Rhonda?
I knew you were going to do me first. Okay, so what I have been doing the last few days is going through some of our old podcasts, some of the really old ones, and looking at doing some mashups and some B-roll and just some other things for some new videos coming out.
How fun.
And it has been very fun. It's sort of like a scrapbook of our little friend circle that's grown into a much bigger friend circle.
Is there any particular thing that comes to mind that you might recommend people scroll back and watch episode whatever, or anything come to mind that was a standout?
Well, the most recent thing that was funny to me was, and I was telling Tina about it earlier, is her Clifton strengths have been apparent from the very beginning. And it's fun to see her learn how to use them. And she's just being true to herself, and it's great. That's been fun for me.
That's wonderful. Yeah, one of the things I really like about our podcast is that we're four so entirely different people. We write different genres, and we have different giftings, and the individualization in me just gets super duper happy about that. Who do we have with us? Oh, Shell is here, and Gigi and Piper and Leah. Everybody is saying hello and hooray. Everybody's happy to be with us. And Piper, Jamie has her voice back. Yes, I woke up last Friday. I was just like a frog, and I didn't even realize that it was Friday until it was almost time for the podcast. So thanks for bearing with me. And hi, Jason. Jason's live in the chat too.
Oh,
what's up with you, Miss Tina?
Well, I'm really happy because I wish I could turn my computer around and show you, but I got a shoji screen. I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it's those Japanese screens that are like a frame and then it has paper where there would be a window pane. And
I know what they are, but I'd like to hear you say it 5 times fast.
No, I can't. I have trouble saying it once fast. And I put it, it just sits on my desk. And it blocks my husband's side of the office, which I face, and is always cluttered. Because I just learned this last week about white space and how my brain needs it. Because if I see clutter, then my brain feels cluttered, and I can't be as creative. I can't think as clearly. So I have one that divides the room over here next to my, like going vertically from my desk, and I have one that sits on my desk in front of me, so I'm like completely blocked in here, and none of my husband's clutter. He's a pastor, so he's got all these books and he's got different things all over the bookshelves, and there's just a lot of stuff, and
he's not a creative, so he's not going to have so he's not going to have the same type of needs like for a space that you do, right?
And so now he can do whatever he wants with his space. He doesn't have to hear me complaining about the stack of books on his desk. I don't see them, so they don't bother me. And the feeling, like I can't even describe how much better it feels.
That's awesome. This so resonates with me, Tina, because I mean, I've been pretty open about everything going on in my life the past couple years. And y'all know that, I'm going through with my mom and what I'm going through, like in this house, which is still in the middle of a remodel. And that's how I feel constantly everywhere I look, because like our kitchen, we have like industrial garage shelving in my dining room with all my kitchen in it. And like so there's like nowhere. And then we had the flood here. So the one space that I felt like was kind of like done and organized is like this now. So I should probably just really just try to close everything else out in my life and just really do what you've done and try to get this office at least.
Yeah, this is like one little corner where nothing can distract.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Everything in here reminds me of writing my book. Like, Yeah. Sorry, Jamie.
Yeah. No, that's okay. Just the last time you were talking about this stuff, I know it inspired Leah. She's in the chat with a what's up. We'll get to that in a second. But I know that she got right on sprucing up her creative space as well. So maybe that's a indicator for somebody out there like Jen who wants to maybe get their creative space in order. Piper's got a what's up. She's getting her words over 30% to her target word count. Yay! Awesome. She's showing up every day. She's got a new logo design and can't wait to splash it everywhere. Super fun. It's really, really
very
cool.
Cute.
Yeah, it's great. Leah Banaki, I'm going to have to talk to you about how to say your name. What's up? Back in the flow, staying on target, and working on book 10 of my series, about 40% into the first draft. Getting it done, ladies. Way to go.
I want to be Leah when I grow up.
Yeah.
I just want to grow up.
Quite a following.
Yeah.
I don't want to grow up. That's the problem.
Yeah, that's right, too. Me too. Shell's also here with a what's up.
Yes. Go ahead, Jen.
Overcame some resistance and reread my 2018 Nano project, and I stopped in the muddy middle. She stopped in the muddy middle. Oh, that murky middle is terrible.
What's amazing about that, though, is she was reading it and she's like, you guys, I actually like this. And it's awesome. Funny because she's so removed from it that it's almost like she's like, did I write this? And that's a really fun place to be, because you can be really brutal with that red pen because you don't feel like personal attached to it so much anymore. You know what I mean?
Right. Ooh, we got to read this one from Piper, too.
Tina, I gave my sister-in-law your book a year ago. We were just talking about books, and she said the one I gave her about Alaska. Oh, wow, that one was so good.
Oh, good. Tell her to leave a review.
Yeah. Tina, why don't you give a little
on Goodreads, on
What's the name of your book, Tina?
Lost in the Land of the Midnight Sun.
Is it available everywhere?
Yes, it is.
All right.
Anywhere you go online.
And Miss Jen, what is up with you?
So, this is my last pair of glasses. It's the last man standing.
Oh, no.
So I know I need to go to the eye doctor, but Tina and I were talking about this before we went live, is that I would pay cash for vision. And my husband has anything you can think of possible, just about. He has astigmatism. I think he's at trifocals at this point. And so like when he goes, it's very expensive, but he has to go because his vision is like so bad. And look, these are even crooked. These are just readers. I get readers that have blue black vision, like the blocking stuff. And I can make do, but like, they're not expensive. And I have broke every pair, and I was down to 3 pair. I lost the clear ones that I wore last week. Can't find them. I went looking this morning. Can't find them.
They're clear.
Yeah. They're invisible. I had a pair of just cheapo turquoise ones that I got, I think, at Dollar General, and they're just regular readers. And I broke them grocery shopping yesterday. How do you break glasses grocery shopping? I don't know, but I did. And so I found these in my drawer, and these are super old ones. Look, they sit on my face crooked. They're actually kind of like a trifocal kind of situation where there's nothing up here in the middle. It's supposed to be a little like you can look at the computer, and down here is for reading, but it's not right. Like I need to be like this to see the computer. I'm a hot mess today. But praise God for Amazon. Today an order is coming in with my some readers that I like. And yes, I do need to make an appointment for the eye doctor. I know that.
Yay.
I have to take my whole family. That's the problem, is that we just need to schedule one a week for like the next several weeks because we have a big family. But that's my what's up, is that glasses issues. But other than that,
I have new glasses coming sometime in the next 10 days. So I'm kind of excited about that too.
I can't wait to see
Well,
them.
in a moment of utter host failure, I put myself last, which means y'all are going to hear me blabbity blab for quite a lot in a row. So the Daily Stoic, I have been journaling through and comparing it with things that I've seen in scripture. But today's Daily Stoic entry was like super long. So I paged back to January 16th. And here is what Musonius Rufus, who is a Stoic I had not been introduced to before, said in his lectures. So, in the majority of other things, we address circumstances not in accordance with right assumptions, but mostly by following wretched habit. Since all I've said is the case, the person in training must seek to rise above so as to stop seeking out pleasure and steering away from pain, to stop clinging to living and abhorring death. And in the case of property and money, to stop valuing receiving over giving. And the language is a little archaic and maybe stilted for people, but basically what he's saying is like, you're so afraid of, you're so clinging to your life and afraid of death that you're not really living is how I interpreted it. And so for whatever reason, that paralleled to me perfectly with Philippians 1:21. For me to live as Christ and to die as gain. Your life is to glorify God. The Reformed Catechism, what is man's primary purpose? To glorify God and enjoy him forever. And when you are living your life out of a place of fear, and the Stoics often talk about memento mori, remember that you will die. And that's supposed to compel you to live a life right now that is memorable, enjoyable, etc., etc. And I just really thought that was a great entry. So I paged back and picked that one. I hope it blesses everybody.
Another one that would go with that too is that Jesus said that whoever wants to gain his life must first lose it. And
Very good.
when I was growing up in the Catholic Church and we would go to Ash Wednesday, the priest would always say, "Remember, you are dust, and to dust you shall return." And that's why I don't dust, because it might be somebody I know.
Oh my word.
Well, I remember it as
Yes.
remember that you are butt dust is what I remember. And so
Oh my gosh.
you are butt dust. And to dust you
my
shall
I really
return.
like butt
goodness.
dust better than butt dust.
Yes, exactly. And on that delightful note, we can transition into our topic du jour, which is POV, or point of view. And it was interesting because I had to refresh myself on like which one is called what thing, and you see that.
And there's arguments online too about it, by the way.
Is there? Well, if you get our
really is.
newsletter, you will see that I was like Googling furiously as I get the newsletter. What is point of view, Jen?
Well, simply put, it's just the perspective from which the story is told. That's it. Plain and simple.
Yes.
So, I mean, some people will have a single point of view in their story. There's usually in romance, at least contemporary romance, will often sometimes be just from one, like the female's perspective. And that can be kind of fun because you have to really interpret the guy completely from what you read that's going on with the female. Historical though too, actually, now I think about it, When Calls the Heart, Jenna Oak classic, that's only from her perspective. And so it can be done like that.
So yeah, let's really talk about what we mean. So like, okay, like when you pick up a book and you start to read it, okay, we're talking about whose head, whose eyes you're looking through,
right,
as the story is being unfolded to you.
Yes.
So
okay, so the simplest, like, let's start with first, second, third. First person means like I, using the word I. We all learned this in like what, 5th grade, like our different, first person, second person. Like I walk into the room and there he stands. That's first person. Now you can have multiple first person, which would be like alternating chapters like that. I personally don't like those books, but again, it's my genre, right? Like it could be in a really, really good in a different genre that I don't read, but
Yes. And we're going to talk about like mixing points of view like in a bit, right? So first person is when you pick up a story, and I think Divergent is like this, something like like you say, the person, if you think of the person who wrote the book as the storyteller, we give it this name, it's the narrator of the book, right? And so the narrator is supposedly the actual character in the book saying, I did this and I did that.
Right. And they'll actually use the word I.
That's first person, which,
And
you could
a lot
think
of-
I, and it's one letter.
Right.
One, yeah.
A lot of like noir mystery kind of things are done like that, where they're like, it was an ordinary day and I was sitting at my desk when the femme fatale walked into my office.
Yeah.
And, like, that was a paraphrase of every noir mystery you've ever read. There you go. You're welcome.
Literally.
I remember one of my favorite lines from one of those things is, she wore a dress that showed everything but good taste.
I love that.
Oh, that's good.
Anyway, I digress. So that's first person.
And then second person, which I had said is rare, almost never used, but Jamie had a really good example. But second person is you. You walk into the room and you see a dead body on the floor. Like, I don't read anything that's in second person, but Jamie had a really good example.
Yes, the example I came up with during our prep is The Whistler. It's an old-time radio drama, and it's like, you didn't expect the police to find your fingerprints, did you, Gary? And it really makes you feel super intense because the narrator is like talking to the character in the play, but because he's saying you all the time, you're supposed to imagine that you are Gary. So it's really kind of a fun trick of the mind.
Right.
And then as you're talking, I thought about choose your own adventure stories.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
I was waiting for Rhonda to say it. I thought I could see it in Rhonda's eyes. She can say it, but we are dating ourselves. We are telling you exactly how old we are, that we know about choose your own adventure. Rhonda, tell us what that is.
Okay, so I actually still have my own choose your own adventures on the shelf, so I will
that's awesome.
do something with those at some point. But what you do is you start reading the book, and something happens, and then you have to make a choice, and you turn to, if you want to do choice A, you turn to page 72 and then start reading from there. And if you want to choose choice B, you turn to page 27 and you start from there. And then there's another choice after that. And it's like a tree pretty much of choices, but you can read the same book multiple times and make different choices every time.
Can you imagine how much work it took to outline, to write those books? Like I struggle with mine that just have a linear outline.
I can't imagine, but I'm telling you, I love spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets. And I'm pretty sure my first spreadsheet had to do with the choose your own adventure book to make sure that I got to see all of the
options.
endings.
Me too.
Yeah.
I did a whole bunch of options because I just wanted to know.
That is so input. Do you have like high input?
Do I?
That's funny.
I got anxiety about choose your own adventure because I had to have the right ending, and so I messed up. So what's going on over here in the chatteroo, Jen?
So Leah says, point of view. I am the queen of point of view. Last book, I had 12 POV in one book. My series has gone berserk.
Were they first person? I must know. Like, so when she changed the chat, would it be like, I'm Clem and I did this and that, or were they second? Or we didn't even talk about third yet, did we?
Right. And Piper says, LOL, Shell, I think I had 6 or 7 in my last book.
Oh my goodness.
So different genres will have different expectations or different options, right? Like I could have more than 2 point of views. I choose not to, just because I like the simplicity of that myself when I'm reading. Though I did enjoy very much the different point of views in Francine Rivers' Redeeming Love. She has many more than she has 4 or 5 at least point of views in that book. By the way, the movie releases today in theaters for those of you that are fans.
I went to the movies a couple weeks ago and I got to see the trailer.
Oh, cannot wait. Okay.
So Leah's books are in third person. And
Mine
what,
are
pray tell?
Yes, mine are too, Leah. So third person, there's different kinds of third person. But basically, third person is somebody that is they, them.
So it's
She,
like the
he.
narrator is telling a story about other people.
Yes.
The narrator is not a character in the story.
Correct.
Okay.
However, there's different kinds, and this is where the arguments start to come in,
Mhm.
which I think is silly. So there is a limited third person, meaning that the narrator can only tell you what they can see that's happening.
Mhm.
Then there's omniscient, which is more what I do. They dive into the personal thoughts and memories of the person. So I, even though I am she, he, they, them, I can still know what they're feeling. I can tell you like their personal memories and things like that. You can have multiple third person again, which is what I do. It gives perspective of multiple characters. You have to be careful though. You have to make sure you only have one person per chapter or scene, because otherwise you're going to have head hopping. So you have to stay
Okay.
in the head of that person.
Yes. Okay. So what you're saying is like, if you have a scene with Warren in it,
Yes.
and you're like, Warren picked up the silver spoon and noticed his handsome reflection in the spoon. Okay.
Yes.
You can't then say, Sarah Albright from across the room thought, what a handsome young man, because
Right.
you can't be inside both people's heads.
Exactly.
Now, the
I can
argument
say
is,
picked up the spoon and then go to Sarah's head, but the fact that he looked at his reflection and thought himself handsome, that automatically sets the stage that you're in his head.
yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
First of all, Warren would never say that he's handsome. And second of all, why would we want to be in anybody's head besides Warren anyway? So that's rule number 1. Okay.
Because you can't look at yourself unless you're looking in a mirror if you're in his
Right.
head all the time.
So it's a fine all right, and there's one caveat. First of all, there are lots of books out there, famous authors, traditionally published and self-published, that break this rule. I will never break this rule because it bothers me, but it doesn't bother every reader. So I will say that before we start an argument right now. But in my world, you have to stay, you cannot head hop. It's just, it's a cleaner, it's easier for the reader so they're not confused. But I will admit, yes, there are famous writers out there that do that.
To me,
Well-
it's confusing, and and sometimes have to go like backtrack a little bit and try to figure out, okay, who is talking right now? Like I've had
Mhm.
that kind of experience, and so, and as an author, you don't want anything in your book that's going to pop the reader out of the world
Mhm.
and make them have to like go back and like go back into their world and try to figure out what's going on.
Right.
Yeah.
Leah's-
BB just, go ahead.
No, go ahead. We'll go to BB first. Go ahead.
Yeah. She mentioned MC Beaton. So she does head hop, but somehow the book is very smooth and you're not confused about it at all. So I've got a Beaton book on my next to my bed right now that I'm reading. So I'm gonna pay attention to find out what she does to make it confusing, and I will report back.
Since
Awesome.
we're on it, though, I think pay attention, Rhonda, because the advice I heard about that was if you are going to be inside everyone's head, you need to establish that in chapter 1 right away, that your narrator is in everyone's head all the time, because then your reader will expect that. So see if
And
that's what
accept it.
see if that's what she's doing, is just starting it early so that it becomes the voice of the piece. So go ahead, Jen.
will.
All right. So Leah says, in my first book, there was a little head hopping a few times, but I learned over time to clean it up. I'm lucky my readers didn't mind. So that was me. My first book, I had a different editor than Jamie, and he was like, girl, he tore it apart. And I didn't even realize I was head hopping. And so that process of going through that editing process with him helped me to see it. Because like when I would read books, I was reading books that didn't have head hopping, but I didn't realize I was doing it in my writing. So again, the more you write, the better you become. But I did clean it up in that first book. And ever since then, I feel like when you make a huge, like a mistake over and over again, you have to fix it over and over and over again in the one book, like you learn from that. And so I've learned that from my first book as well.
Well, because it's insidious, Jen, because it's not just what they think, but it's about their motivation. So like, someone could be running to the car, and if it's not the person whose point of view you're describing, you can't say that they're late for tea, or that, you know,
Right.
unless your character would know that. Like, so
Right.
unless your character would know the thoughts of that person. So it isn't, it can be really tricky, and you can head hop without really kind of noticing that you are.
And this is a great transition into from what is point of view now to how do we use point of view.
Yes. Yes.
So first thing is you got to decide what your point of view is going to be. For me, it was a no-brainer because I know my genre very well. If you read in the chat up a little bit higher, Leah and I have the same genre. She's the same as me. She's omniscient, third person. It's very, very common in my genre, and it just was comfortable for me because guess what? The more you read, that's kind of what comes out of you, right? So I'm very careful about what I read too when I'm in the middle of writing or editing, because I don't want to be I read a couple chapters. I'm editing my fourth book, and there were a couple chapters that were in present tense, and I'm like, what? And I think it was because I was reading something that was present tense way back then when I wrote that. But so choosing your point of view, you have to look at your genre, but you can choose a point of view for the whole book. Like I said, Jeanette Oak earlier had one point of view for the entire book of One Calls the Heart. You can choose multiple, but you just have to make that choice. And when choosing, for me, when I'm choosing, this is what Jamie was alluding to. When I'm choosing whose point of view to be in the chapter or the scene that I'm writing, I have to ask myself a couple questions. Who has the most to lose? Like who has, like there are multiple people in this scene, but who has the most to lose? Who's the most important person right now? And it may not be the most obvious person, because I know what's going to happen, but not everybody does. So sometimes you might think it should be one person, but it really needs to be another person. And that's one of my tips, which I put down later, but I'm going to give it right now. If you're struggling with a scene and it just isn't working for you, change point of view. That works for me every time. Like if I'm struggling and I just can't get the scene to work for me or fit the book, or it just doesn't seem right, I just change point of view, and all of a sudden it's like, there it is. Because I wasn't supposed to be inside their head. I was supposed to be inside this person's head. So.
And like for me and my, well, I don't know if it's the genre or just my story. I have multiple characters that have character arcs.
Yes.
And they're not all in the same place physically as my main character. And so it's necessary for me to have chapters from their point of view to show them progressing in their character arc, even though they're not physically in the same place as my main character. And I also have something to say about the antagonist, but I'm going to change it. I'm going to save it for the next point.
Okay.
So
Leah says the temptation to head hop, especially in a tense scene. I want both characters' thoughts. I have to be very strategic on who I choose for point of view for that specific scene. I agree with that. I think that's what makes us good writers, though. Would you ladies agree that this is one point of view is one of those things that a new writer may not think about how important it is, but it's very important.
I've also seen too where you have a scene, like one of those scenes like she's talking about that's really important. You have like part of it from one character's point of view, and then you have another scene and it's really the same situation, but it's from another character's point of view.
Yep.
Back to back.
And Rhonda, I'd like you to speak to the next point on the outline, which is what needs to be hidden, just from the perspective of writing maybe a cozy.
Right, because not like sometimes like it's who has the most to lose, but then for me too, sometimes it's like, okay, what do I need to keep hidden at this point in the story?
Are you asking about like clues and that sort of thing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like would that maybe tell you which point of view to use?
Sure. You know, you probably don't want to use the point of view of the murderer or whoever the bad guy is in the book.
I hope they don't know it's me.
Yes. Although there have been some good books. The one that I usually go to is escaping my mind right now, but there's a movie called DOA, and that was really good for point of view. It was quite a surprise at the end, I thought. But anyway, yeah. So you want to be, if you're going to be inside anybody's head, it's going to be the sleuth. And then everybody else, you want to sort of look like you stay out of their head, and it makes them look more like a
suspect.
Thank you.
Everybody should be a suspect, but the sleuth.
Yes, and
Mm.
sometimes it's not just mysteries, right? I mean, Jen
Right.
had a really good example from Harry Potter where you need to keep something hidden in order to make the plot line work.
Right. We do not get inside of Professor Snape's head until, like, I think it's the last book. And if we were inside his head any earlier, it would have ruined the rest of the series because we have to have a certain opinion of him. And it isn't until then that we're like, what? You know, and so same thing like with my books, like with in any romance, like the part of romance is that they don't get together at the beginning. Otherwise, the book is like done. Right. And so misconceptions and misunderstandings have to happen. And if we're inside a certain character's head and we understand their motivation, then it ruins it for the reader. Like, but watching that character walk away and not know why and assuming that you know why, that makes for a tense scene. It makes you want to turn the page to the next chapter. So
All right. Almost forgot that I was the host there for a second because Jen, you were just being so riveting.
That was me
now-
last
we're at-
week.
so we were at
Yes.
who has the most to lose, what needs to stay hidden, and then the opposite of
Mhm.
that.
What
is-
needs to be revealed?
And that's where I have
Mhm.
something to say about the antagonist point of view. Because in books like mine, where there's like an adventure and you have your main character just like kind of ignorantly going on their merry little way, skipping through the daisies, you can up the tension and the, I don't know, stress, I guess, of your, and get your character or your reader anticipating the danger that they're skipping toward that they don't know about, or chasing behind them that they don't know about. Either one. And so when you, if you can see it from the antagonist point of view, like, I'm gonna get that little girl with her little dog, you know, and the character's just like skipping through the daisies, then that ups your tension and that helps your story a lot.
Do not read our chat unless you want a spoiler from BB. BB, do not put spoilers in our chat. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
She did say something good though. She said, in her opinion, in first person attitude of narrative is clouded by the character's emotion, etc.
Mhm.
I would
Yep.
say that would hold true for third person too. You know, like often the attitude of a character will cloud the way they're seeing how the other character is reacting, and that makes it a real juicy book for sure.
Yes. And what do you guys think about this first person? I remember when I was a new writer, people saying, be careful with first person because it can be very boring for the reader to, I did this and then I did that and then I did this. And there's no switching around of like your name for your character. So do you think that that's wise advice to avoid first person if you're new, or do you think it's just going to depend? What do
I
y'all
have a
think?
little story about that.
Yes.
Okay. When I sat down and said, okay, I'm going to write a book. First person is what comes naturally to me. And I was told by multiple people that, well, don't do first person unless you're writing a children's book or young adult or whatever. Because adult novels aren't written in first person. Well, okay. Well, that's wrong.
Baloney,
That's
yeah.
never been a true statement. But I tried so hard to get into third person, and writing was such a struggle for me. So I said, forget it. Well, I guess I'm going to write a children's book because I have to write in first person. And I am glad that I stuck with what was true to me because I feel like I've become a much better writer than I was. And it's, I think you need to write in what just comes naturally to you.
And right, you're not just writing inside their head. You know, you're inside their head, and then all of a sudden somebody says to them, and you put this in there, somebody says, well, that was before your divorce. We didn't know that he was divorced. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, so now all of a sudden it's like, ooh, and like now we know why this person hates women so much or has talks about negatively about women. Do you know what I'm saying? So I think that like that's bad advice. I think that it's all about the story and making sure that you craft a good story.
Yes.
So I think it can be done well.
All right. And I think sometimes point of view chooses you, actually. I think that sometimes you sit down and I think that if you're ever stuck, you do a sprint and you see what comes out. You set the timer and you make yourself right and switch back and forth if you have to, and you see what comes out. And sometimes it's very revealing.
Leah says her favorite point of view, she had a con man character a few books back. He was the best to write. His inner voice was so much fun. Judging all the characters that my readers loved, so much fun. I was
Judging
thinking,
everybody.
yeah, that's awesome. I was thinking earlier today about my favorite point of view, and I think I love all my characters. You guys know that, but I really enjoyed writing John. John was not a really good guy at all at the beginning, and I really loved to be able to just show his change without saying John changed, right? And I love that, like we talked about what needs to be revealed. That was our last, way of how you decide what point of view you're going to write from. And he, I was at a point in the story where he knew he loved her. He was pretty sure she loved him, and he was going to go like tell her that. And then we were inside his head and a memory came flooding back and it changed everything. And I had to be in his head for that scene. And I loved writing that scene. It was a writing challenge for another writing group that we're in. If you have the book, go read the chapter Red Roses. That's the chapter that I'm talking about.
What is the name of the book?
Avoiding Esther, available everywhere. And I have a copy right here with for some reason with a bunch of Post-it notes on it. Ooh. But yeah, so sometimes like the point of view can really make you love what you're writing too. So it's fun.
Okay, so unless I am mistaken, we have covered everything except for little tips. I gave my tip, which was to do a writing sprint and see what came out. Jen gave a tip to change the point of view. Anybody got any final tips or tricks for discovering or choosing point of view, or any last thoughts about it?
I mean, I just daydream. What Rhonda and I were talking about earlier, and whoever is the main point of view in my daydream ends up in my scene. Like that's usually what happens.
Yep. All I do is sprint and see who is talking to me.
There you go.
Yes. Whose voice is loudest? All right. Speaking of sprints and speaking of whose voice is loudest in your little writer brain, we do a sprint every week before the podcast starts. And we set the timer for 15 minutes and we write. We do not have any time to edit these pieces. And then we come and read them live on the air so that you can see what it is like to do that and hopefully be entertained by our stories. So this week, Jen, what was our prompt? And if you would be so kind as to share your sprint first, we only give positive feedback because nobody has had time to edit. So what was our topic today, Jen?
Today's prompt was the antagonist's perspective.
Ooh. Oh, Leah says no crying on the sprints this week. Last week was brutal, girls. Yeah, go back and listen.
Oh,
yeah, we had some good ones. All right, Jen. So say the prompt again. I'm sorry.
You are not going to cry at this one, other than that. Ooh, that was bad. Maybe you might cry like, ooh, that was terrible. Okay. The prompt is the antagonist's perspective. Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful middle-aged woman. But don't let her hear you call her middle-aged, because in her eyes, she was still as young and as sprightly as a spring fawn, and she had all the spots forming on the back of her hands to prove it. To her credit, she did look much younger than her actual years, having spent the majority of her adulthood slathering on every cream and concoction the apothecary carried for anti-aging, and by taking her mother's advice to stay out of the sun as much as possible. She would never admit that she listened to her mother's advice, mind you. That woman was the source of every painful childhood memory Gilda had. But she was a beautiful woman. She died without a wrinkle on her face, having never exercised the muscles there for anything resembling a smile. It's no wonder. But she did make quite the expression in her last moments, and that memory did make Gilda smile. But that is another story altogether, best left for another time. Today's story is about how our dear beloved, not at all old enough to have a teenage daughter, heroine, was mistreated and abandoned by the love of her life in favor of his snotty, foul-mouthed, pathetic excuse for a daughter. Everything had been perfect, finally, for our heroine. She had rid herself of her past, again, a story for another time, and had met the man of her dreams, and a king no less. And everything had been perfect. That is, until his daughter decided to drop out of finishing school and return to the palace. She wasn't home 20 minutes before the entire castle, her husband included, was all abuzz. Isn't she beautiful? Isn't she the sweetest? Look at her perfect skin. It was enough to make a grown woman strangle something or someone. 3, 2, 1.
Ooh.
That's all I got.
Now, what kind of point of view is this kind of, storyteller person? Do we know? Is this an omniscient person then? With this is certainly
would be
third person.
Third person omniscient because the person's inside her head. And
I just
But-
have to know, is the daughter Snow White?
yes.
Oh, I love the fawn spots. I love fawns
Yeah,
have
that was
spots
funny.
and the hands have spots. Very nice. Very nice.
Yes.
It was
Are
good.
you
yeah.
dabbling in the fairy tales? Or was that
No.
just for today?
Just
No, I
because
hated this
today,
prompt.
yeah.
I'll be honest with you guys. I did not want this prompt.
Oh,
I came up with a different prompt, but it was similar. And then Tina came up with this one, and it was like, oh, okay. It didn't matter to me at the time, but as soon as I said, okay, that's fine, I was like, I don't like this prompt, and I'm like,
Mm.
it'll be fine by Friday. By Friday came, I'm like, I don't like this prompt.
I
Piper
love
says third person close. Interesting.
hmm.
And she
Hmm.
also said that your story is so good, Jen. And
Aw,
Gigi
thank
also
you.
said Jennifer so good. Sorry, Tina, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to steamroll you. What were you saying?
I thought it was very juicy, and I really loved it. Like
I did
writing it.
too.
Mhm. Yeah, I was
The
really
types of
getting into it.
details. Yeah.
I'm so sad that there's a timer now.
I know. I was stopped mid sentence.
Rhonda, why don't you take the next slot here and tell us what you wrote for the antagonist perspective.
Sure. Okay. Just FYI, Nettie is not a gardener, but I didn't want to take time to figure out who I was talking about here. So I just used her name. All right. Oh, there. I almost yelled it out loud, but managed to stifle it before alerting Nettie to my presence in her garden. Her precious garden. You know, she cares about those stupid roses more than people. That's what I like to say. I pulled the salt out of my bag and pulled open the spout. The girl on the label caught my eye. Nettie used to have the same yellow coat and galoshes when we were kids. Yes, we were kids once, fun and vibrant and inseparable. How did things turn out this way? Scenes from our youth played in my mind. The slight breeze shifted, and the delightful aroma from Nettie's rose garden brought me back from memory lane. I was still holding the cylinder of salt, still staring at the little girl and her goose, but now I was gripping the container so hard that it was starting to look like an hourglass.
Oh.
Not this year, Nettie. That prize is mine. She might have ribbons from the last 2 decades, but she won't get one this year. The end.
How
Oh.
terrible!
Salt in the
Yeah,
roses.
you're right.
Oh,
I mean, you did so good that this person is terrible.
Thank you.
I have to
Brenda.
know more.
Yeah, I love it.
Like,
As soon as
who
you
is
said
this?
salt, Tina went,
Oh,
I was like, oh no.
yeah.
I just had a Bible study on salt.
Oh.
So I have all this stuff going on in my head right now.
Shell says evil Rhonda, so great.
Thank you.
Yes, boy. Yeah, I really like that. I love that you had very clearly evil designs
Mhm.
on the roses, and you actually got the motive kind of in there too. And now I want to know what series of unfortunate events led to this terrible
Hmm.
departure of friendship.
It's all in the book.
And good job, Rhonda, on doing something that hurts your main character.
Yeah.
I agree.
Well, I have some words for you in the what's next. So
Awesome. Piper says
Uh-oh.
this is such fun. Rhonda, you rock first person. So great. I
Aw.
agree.
Mhm.
thank you.
Mhm.
Leah says, hooray, good build up.
Thank you.
And Piper says, Rhonda, apparently you are able to put your characters through the ring.
Yay, Rhonda.
It's been a long time coming.
All right, I'll go next, and then we'll have Bambina read hers. Here we go. I don't get it. Don't get what? This trend to have sympathy for the bad guy in all our media nowadays. You sound like a fogey. Want me to drive around the block until we see some kids playing on a lawn for you to yell at? Har har. Shelley sunk into silence. It had been a long time since she had been critical of a movie Roger had taken her to see, but this one had her agitated. She supposed, as she watched the windshield wipers ineffectively swipe over the same smudge on the windshield, that she was taking things just a bit too personally. As usual, Roger's voice in her mind added, and she again fumed. She couldn't stop looking at the impotent wiper blades, but didn't dare turn to take a look at her equally impotent partner. How long had it been since she'd been able to hold a good long conversation about a film she'd seen? She worked hard to recollect and had to dig all the way into the archives of her sophomore year in high school and the first time she had seen the Rocky Horror Picture Show. Ah, my theater friends, of course, she thought, the rhythm of the wiper blades now changing into the backbeat for the earworm of time warp she had contracted. Had it really been that long since she'd had a good discussion about film? About anything? She did look at Roger now, sitting silent in his leather captain's chair, hand on his travel mug. What did you think of the movie? She finally dared to ask. It was good, she said, at the same time he did. He was a cautious driver, so the scathing glance he gave her lasted only a nanosecond. Are you making fun of me? The challenge was blatant. He was daring her to say yes. How many of these challenges had gone unanswered over their 10 years of marriage? How many times had she insisted that, no, she would never do such a thing. She had only been misunderstood. Not tonight, she thought. All throughout the film, she'd squirmed and huffed and clenched her fists hard enough to leave crescents in her palms. She was not about to let the bully win this showdown. Yes, she said, then turned her eyes forward, sank back into her seat, and held her breath. The reaction was immediate. Roger jammed on the gas and swerved into another lane, though he blamed the maneuver on the actions of a yellow Tundra, which he accused of almost running him off the road. The driver of the Tundra received a scathing tongue lashing Shelley knew was meant for her, but she did not react. She resisted the urge to reach up and grab the Ono bar and now remained perfectly still. She had said what she'd had to say. He didn't speak to her for the rest of the ride home, and Shelley went directly to her bed and cried. For once, however, the tears were not the hot tears of frustration, but the tears of sweet release. It was the first of many steps in the direction of honoring herself, and she knew it was the first in the journey away from her own personal antagonist.
Wow.
Very good. Interesting. Your twist, your take on the prompt. Oh, because I was as you were reading it, so good, and I kept thinking, where's the antagonist? Is she the antagonist? I love your last line. It brings it all together.
Yep.
So good. Yeah.
I appreciate
Well, it was so
that.
good, I forgot there was even a prompt. And so
Mhm.
I wasn't even looking to see if it was from the antagonist point of view until she said the last line.
Yep, me too. Yep. I was so involved into it. I have to admit though, when you did bring up Rocky Horror Picture Show, I did daydream for a second, but only for a second. I came right back.
I've never seen it.
Oh,
I don't know where that must have been the year I ran away.
Your life
Good
would
choice.
not exactly be enriched. I was in high school. What can I say?
Piper says, "Wow, so very good." I absolutely agree.
appreciate that.
Like,
Yes,
just-
and yes, go ahead, Jen.
just as to think that like here she reads like yours. This is the difference between yours and mine. Mine is so very clear that she's an antagonist, so very clear. But yours is like she's a heroine throughout this whole thing. But really, what the struggle is, it's her personal antagonist that's inside of her. Like it just very, very well done. Very good, mature writing. I loved it.
I appreciate it. I love the feeding of the bags. I love compliments. Give me compliments. Thank you. Thank you.
Here's
I
another
love
one.
it.
Gigi says, Jamie, a full-fledged story in 15 minutes. So much good in here. I know she could do so much.
Yeah.
Jamie has a gift for dialogue and description. Yes.
Yes.
Shell says, great characters, Jamie. Jason says, so good, Jamie. Yep. Agree.
Thanks, everybody.
Agree.
I appreciate it very much. And Piper, you and I can talk about Rocky Horror another time in a chatty chat. So Tina, let's hear your
Okay.
take on this prompt.
This is the antagonist from my current work in progress.
Ooh.
And I had so much fun writing this scene, I might actually put it in the book.
Ooh.
Yay.
So we'll see what you guys think.
All right.
We have what you requested, the man said, placing a package wrapped in sealskin on the table and backing up, head down. Ivan could never remember the names of the men in his lower ranks. He knew he should give him some kind of accolades, but he couldn't be bothered with others' tiny little feelings at the moment. Before him sat the answer to all his dreams. It was the full, original copy of the last printed Bible from ancient times before the Great Catastrophe. It was said to hold the secret to great power within its pages. He had no doubts that it was true. Reports of his daughter's miraculous healing had reached him from across the vast stretches of wilderness between them. He picked the package up, cradling it in his hands. He closed his eyes, waiting for the surge of emotion that came with great power. He craved it, sought it out like some men sought the company of women. Women held no sway over him ever since he'd first tasted the sweet taste of power over others. It was his own mother at first that he swayed to his will. She was easy. She had strong feelings for him. Feelings he never really understood them. Not until the first time he'd exerted power over a man. Not a small man like the errand boy before him, but a man who wielded power in his time. Ivan had taken it from him, taking all that he had with one act of aggression. The surge of feeling had made him giddy, drunker than any strong drink ever had, and he craved it ever since. Ivan waved the plebeian away, wanting to be alone with his prize, taking the wrapping off and tossing it to the floor, forgotten. It looked like any other old book he'd ever seen, its cover cracked and moldered, the pages barely sticking to the binding. He opened it, gently turning its pages. At the place where it had been obviously sewn together with its missing other half, the pages were in better condition, the back cover not as decayed. Ivan lay his hands flat against the cool pages, closing his eyes, trying to summon the power from the book. Nothing. What was the secret? Was there some ritual he must follow, or mystical words to be spoken? He must find out. He shouted for his assistant. 3, 2, 1. Done.
Wow.
That was really good.
Yes.
Do you have this character from his perspective already in your book?
No.
But
I've been thinking about adding it for some time.
Well, if it's like this, I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny because Piper's like, ooh, get his filthy hands off that manuscript. And like, while I totally agree, I was like so waiting for you to do what you did, which was for him to realize like, wait a minute, I have the magical book. Why am I not suddenly all powerful? Because like, spiritual things are hidden from the non-spiritual, right? And so I really like that message in there.
Mm-hmm.
Leah says, grr, I don't like this guy. Deliciously terrible. And Piper says, oh, wow, I vote yes to find a way to add to the book. Yeah. So as you're reading, I kind of wish you hadn't told me you're going to add it to the book because like we only give positive feedback. And here's my positive feedback. That was really good. Like I loved it. But then me being, because I'm in editing mode right now, right? Like that's where my head
So
is.
am I.
And all I kept thinking is, okay, I need more about the power. Like how he like wielded power over the adult male and over his mom. Like I need to know more about that, like which I guess is that is positive feedback. Like that makes me want to know more. So I guess before it went into a book, you would need to be a little bit more explicit about the fact of like what the power means. Like is it a supernatural power or is it like money? Like just be more specific. Like, but that's what a sprint is for, right? You do this, and then now you need to go back.
I have not done the work I do with my characters.
Yeah,
where I do like a full backstory kind of thing that I write, and
because you weren't planning this, right?
No, this was just a sprint. So
I love it.
It would add some work
to
add it to the book. But then at the same time, I think it would add that suspense that I'm looking for that I feel like is a little bit missing in this second book. So
that's awesome. Gigi says, Tina, a peek into your book. Wow, my interest is officially peaked.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Shell says, Tina, yes, so wonderful description of the power lust. Reminds me a little of the movie, The Book of Eli.
I've had my books compared to that movie a lot.
Oh, that's awesome. Jason says that was so good. That moment of realization was so good. And Shell says, I want to know if he'll be lost or if he'll be saved.
That's a good question.
Since you just invented him.
It just shows that the writing was good, Tina, that we have all these questions that you don't have answers to. So it was good. Good job.
Leah's got a great idea.
I love that, Leah.
Leah says he reads the books and he melts like in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
That's great.
I can't
All
save
right.
all my characters, or I wouldn't have any bad guys, and
Right.
then I wouldn't have a good book.
Right.
Well, I believe it's time to move on from the feeding of the backs to the what's next, where we find out what is next in the lives and careers of us four amazing co-hosts. So, Rhonda, you've got me on pins and needles ever since you said you had something in your what's next for us to hear about you injuring and wounding your characters.
Okay, so this is a different what's next from what it was going to be at the beginning. It's changed throughout this. So first of all, I'm going to pick up my gumshoe again. I've got to put Z's thing aside for a minute because it's such a mind block right now. It's like my brain is one big encased in huge block of ice, and so I'm going to take my gumshoe novel back out.
Yay!
And I think the reason for that is that I didn't finish it before is because I couldn't I got through the murky middle, but then when I got to the end, I just didn't want to hurt anybody. And well, I do now.
Yay!
I've
Rhonda wants to hurt somebody. That's such good news.
well, I just want to get that novella done and completed and out there. And I've watched a couple of, I don't recommend this for most Christian indie writers, but I watched a couple episodes of Dexter recently, and I'm totally motivated to hurt some people.
We need to talk about that later because
Okay.
to talk about it would be a total spoiler for the entire series.
Oh,
But
okay.
I am upset, to be say the least.
Okay.
All right. And so, Rhonda, what have you written and where can people find it?
Right now on Amazon, we have our How to Plot Your Novel with this workbook. It's a workbook on Amazon.
Written by
D.D. Bowman is the author.
All righty. And what is your what's next, Miss Jen?
Well, if you all recall, a couple of episodes ago, we talked about planning, and Tina shared her Kanban board, and I had done a temporary because you see my office, a temporary situation, and I just want to show it real quick. So this is my Kanban. This is all the stuff I did. 1, 2, 3 chapters left in round 1 of editing.
Yay!
I'm so excited. So it's going really well, way faster than I had expected. I expected it to take me a couple of months to get through this. This is just round 1. Of course, I have like 2 more rounds that I do before it ever goes to the editor and like that. But yeah, I'm very pleased with this is working for me to have like the post-it notes to move over, and it's working for me to have a calendar to schedule open. And then when I find time to write, I highlight it and put it in the book so that I'm keeping track of when I can write. And it's kind of opening my eyes to a better schedule for me. I don't have anything set yet, but it's working for me. So moving forward, my what's next is I'm gonna get those chapters done. And I've already started searching for images. So I'll probably start playing around with the cover just for giggles, because I do that after I'm done with editing. Even if I'm not ready to release, I get the cover going. So that's my what's next.
So Jen, why don't you talk a little bit about your books? Like, so this is the third sister in the Albright sisters, right?
Yep.
These novels follow the adventures of the Albright sisters in love.
Yep. And it's the 4th book because the novella is their best friend, starts off the series. So this is book 4, and it is set because she's younger. So it's set in the 20s actually. And yeah, you can get the other books everywhere. You can download the first book, Searching for Anna. Anna's novella is everywhere for free. You can download that. And then if you want to read book 2 for free, you just have to go to my website, jennifercarltong.com, and sign up for my newsletter, and you will get a downloadable ebook for free of that one.
Jennifer Carl Tong, 1 N 2 L's.
Yes.
Yes.
All right. N and Jennifer. There's also another N over there floating in Tong.
Okay. So let's see in our chat. What's next? Leah says she's trying to actually meet a deadline. She's shooting for 80,000 words by February 19th. She had a life coach session to help her focus on focus and discipline. Discipline is high up there for her. Isn't that interesting? Discipline is not high for me. Piper says her Yes. Piper says her what's next is getting the words and planning her newsletter. Started reading a new book and plan to finish this weekend. Also may take a road trip for research for the work in progress. Ooh, road trip.
road
So
trip.
jealous.
I
And
wanted
so
so
is
bad to
Leah.
get a road trip in at Christmas time. I wanted to go down to Meadowbrook Hall when it was decorated for Christmas, and I didn't get down there. So, darn it.
Jason's what's next is trying to fix the flow of his book. Found some problems when he read the book aloud. That will happen. That's a
Yeah.
really good tip, Jason.
That's my next step.
All right. I will do my what's next. I did get a newsletter out this month. Happy me. My author newsletter is called the Writing Shorts newsletter. You get a free short story when you subscribe at www.writingshorts.net. This month, I released a short fantasy called Blue Bloods, which I had a lot of fun writing. And if you go to writingshorts.net, you can read it there. And if you subscribe to the newsletter, you'll get the next short story that I release sent directly to your email inbox. And you'll get links to all kinds of freebies and downloads that you can get just for signing up for an author newsletter. So head over to writingshorts.net. And I am working on book 4 edits for my light sci-fi series.
Yay.
Yeah, I am getting there with it. It's actually going to be much longer than the first 2 books in the series, which were little novellas. This appears to be almost novel length, so it should be interesting. And I'm having a lot of fun with it because I'm really removed from it the way that Shell is removed from her Nano project. So doing the edits has actually been not difficult because I'm super not attached to it. And this was a story that started way back during our first writing retreat, you guys. So it'll be really nice to finally let it see the light of day.
Is this the one with Corny in it?
No, Corny's out. This is
Okay.
Corny returns in book 4, which I'm not to yet. I'm editing book 3. This one has introduces a new series, a character species
Okay.
of alien.
I remember now.
Yep. All right. And so what's next for you, Miss Tina?
Well, I need to sit down and do some brainstorming and figure out if my version of Ivan the Terrible is going to go into this book. And if he is, I have some work to do that's going to take me on a little rabbit trail. But my instinct is that it'll make my book better. So
I really am curious, if you decide to add him, how does that change your Kanban? Well, I mean, that's probably too long to talk about in just a...
Well, I would just add another Post-it, like my big Post-it notes are like the overarching goal. And then I make little Post-it, like I have these little ones, and those are the steps to reach that goal. So I would just add it and then decide what order I'm going to do my steps in. So it really would work out pretty good to just add it. Also, if you want to catch up on the story before the next one comes out, it's Lost in the Land of the Midnight Sun. It's on sale everywhere books are sold online. And if you go to my website, ChristinaCatane.com, and hit buy now, it goes to my personal store where I get 100% of the profits.
Nice.
So plug in that one. That's it.
All righty. So I guess did we get Shell and Jason have just Shell. We got Jason's what's next already. Shell says we'll work on outlining forward the Nano project from 2018. Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah. Okay. So that concludes this episode of the Christian Indie Writers Podcast. Until next time, may your pen be prolific, may your deadlines be met, and may all of your words honor Christ. Bye now.
Bye.